Good evening, Danvers. Welcome to a special edition of Topics of the Town. I had the pleasure of attending a general resident meeting, citizens meeting of the Pine Street and some other areas that are being affected by the current zoning proposals. And this meeting was held on December 18th, which was last night, at 6:30 p.m. at the fire station. At that meeting, over 50, and I couldn't count everyone because they were even out in the hallway, 50 to 70 residents that turned out to deliberate about what the heck is going on with our zoning. Why are we having a special town meeting that is scheduled for February 3rd? And how come we are challenged every time along the way without any answers from our administration or our planning department, who are gearing this revision to our zoning and planning recommendations for February 3rd. One of the things that I would like to address, and I have several, I took some notes, but the attendance was very, very respectable. And there were several long-term town meeting members that came. David McKenna was there. There's other several issues. Mr. Jim Morose was leading the discussion. And the thing that came out, and what I have basically seen, is that people are not informed about what has transpired over the last 5 to 10 years in regard to our zoning and our impact from the legal actions or legislative actions of our Massachusetts legislature, and our two representatives are Sally Kearns and Joan Lovely. They do not understand what is this MBTA zoning explanation. What is it? The question was raised. The answer to that should have been, it's a legislative or law that was passed by our legislators to impose density and congestion into our neighborhoods. We have totally lost the cultural and stable zoning that has been developed over the years, and now we are being dictated by the state legislature to change our mind and make our neighborhoods more dense without any resolution on parking, without any resolution on access, and we have been inundated with other legislation, which was mentioned by our former selectman David McKenna. This is the accessory use is now legislated by our infamous Boston state legislature And what they want to do is make every zone in our community able to build and add accessory uses, which in our case has been for, family related, accommodations for our elderly, and we're all getting to be elderly, but they do not want to revert back because what this is really creating is a two-family zone for every single zone in our community. The other discussion that was very interesting is affordable housing. What is affordable housing? It's how much you can pay for a house and make sure you live in it. And can you make it happen on your salary? That has never been defined and has never really been calculated because we don't know who actually goes into these affordable buildings and apartments. Non-binding question: save Danvers from high density. That was another recommendation from the residents. Why are we allowing, or our planning organization and our town management are pushing to make everything dense and populated, and their excuse is that we want a walking community so we can walk to every single item, every single business. Businesses are not there anymore, guys. Special town meeting is scheduled for February 3rd. People don't even know that. This whole meeting was initiated basically through the Pine Street development that's adjacent to the Sylvania facility, and it is the start of a neighborhood issue. However, the neighborhood has been very not informed about what actually can happen there. They've started attending their meetings, the planning board meetings, but too little, too late. The thing is, one of the suggestions was made, and I'll take credit for that, is that we should first determine whether we like what's going on in downtown and into other neighborhoods, because the zoning has been changing and we don't even know what the unintended consequences of that zoning will provide. So my suggestion was, let's put a moratorium on any more changes in the zoning of our town, because we are being dictated by these small incremental changes, and these changes do not necessarily reflect what the community wants. Pine Street organization does need some assistance from our leaders that we have in our town. The Board of Selectmen is waiting to accept the recommendation from the town planning board on January 7th. And that's where that should stop, wait, assess, and then develop the plan. The one thing that everybody was very concerned about is congestion and density. The version whether these are going to be condos or apartments. That's a different kind of organization that would be handling these buildings. If you look at the monstrosity on Maple Street across from the old fire station, that is a 147 unit that are going to be rented right now, that's what I understand, with limited business acceptance down at the first floor level. It is a monstrosity. It resembles Rantoul Street in Beverly. Condo versus apartments is a limitation. Communications to the residents. One of the biggest issues that was discussed is that the residents don't understand or don't have an idea of what the impact of any of these changes will be. The planning board is sitting there and getting these recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and I don't think they know what effect these changes will have, because they are not even finalized yet, and they're going to the Board of Selectmen in 2.5 weeks. And they want to ram them through the town meeting on February 3rd. Stop the town meeting. This is not that urgent. We need to assess and review of what impact these zoning changes will have. Moratorium have been dealt in the past and should be considered at this time. What I mentioned to the residents at this meeting was that the special town meeting can accept a 100 signature warrant article that will identify the issues and stop the implementation of these particular zoning changes. We need a moratorium, and we need to demand it from the Board of Selectmen, because if that does not stop at the Board of Selectmen, it will just go right through town meeting, and town meeting rubber stamps many issues. So, I have provided you a presentation of the meeting. I took the time and efforts to put it together. And if you wish, the entire meeting is recorded, and I will be showing that after this introduction. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to address some of the issues that are happening. Thank you very much for being part of this organization, and thank you to Mr. Jim Morose and the Mrs. Polcari, and there are several other members, and you'll get them recognized during this presentation. So enjoy the show, listen, understand, and then let's act, because the Board of Selectmen needs to hear our pleas. Thank you very much, and enjoy the show.
Few questions. I'm Jim Morose, by the way.
Hi, Jim.
Today I'm playing a regular citizen. For those, okay, there was a few questions on this about whether this was a Republican committee meeting or is it. But I ran into the Pine Street neighborhood group when they were, trying to get some relief on zoning there at the ZBA. So this is basically what this is just a bunch of citizens, as we advertise this, to let's talk about zoning, the process, and what can and can't be done, and where we are. I mean, I know a lot of people are upset about, the corner of Maple and Hobart, Surprise, but, the way the zoning is now, I mean, we all just need to learn the process, okay? And basically, you know, the zoning bylaws are the zoning bylaws, and people will be able to build whatever's allowed. But they do have special permits and all sorts of processes where they can get a, you know, get a few extra, you know, bites of the apple, so they say. But basically, what's happening on Pine Street is that they wanna build 8 units and they wanna change one of the, lots from industrial to, residential use, okay? And, apparently the zoning board of appeals didn't agree with that, so they suspended the meeting and they're gonna reconvene in January to see what the developer wants to do, okay? But basically, by right, they can build 7.5 units, okay? And then so they wanted 8, and so there's, you know, the only other issue that the Pine Street folks can do is to talk about, you know, what happened to the agreement with the contaminated land, and has that been resolved? So we don't know that. So I don't know if anybody here is from the Pine Street that's been looking into that, but I know Linda had got some information from the DEP, and so there is an open file there. There's just too much to go through. So someone who's interested in it should go through it. But again, with our zoning bylaws, I mean, right now, there's gonna be some more zoning bylaws, and we are kind of on the track of the MBTA zoning, okay? Which we started back in 2020, I think, or 2019. And that's what zoned the downtown area and down High Street and down towards Elm Street. So that's the zoning that we have, and that's what we got to live with. And I mean, if you want to stop any extreme big building, what we really got to do is address zoning changes, okay? Because where we are right now is, you know, whatever's legal, they can build. So the thing is, the zoning bylaws, I just want to go through the process, and then we'll just have some general discussion and questions, okay? But basically, the process is, the Danvers Planning Board owns the zoning bylaws. So normally, as a course of business, you know, during the course of business, they run across issues, they get questions, and complaints, right? So with those, they will adjust the zoning bylaws, you know, to what they, you know, run into as a course of business. And then as a policy for the town, the selectmen and the town manager, if they want certain things, you know, they would, you know, meet with the planning board and assess how we want our zoning to be designed. What do we want Danvers to look like is what the zoning bylaws are, right? But to add insult to injury, sometimes we get input from the state, okay? And that's what all this MBTA zoning is input from the state.
Yeah, what exactly is that MBTA zoning? What does that mean? I kind of heard about it, but I don't really know what it means.
Okay, so the MBTA zoning is, the state passed some kind of law, and so if the MBTA, you know, mass transit comes into your town, then you have to abide by these zoning bylaws, and it's basically, you know, lots of multi-unit dwellings, okay? Like what we did in Danvers, I mean, just basically, you know, like by right. And like in the Residence 1, you can have a 4-unit per acre. But with the MBTA zoning and what we did downtown, you can have either 12 or 16 or 20 units per acre by right. And then with a special permit, you can get up to 24 or 36, you know? So, but so because Danvers doesn't have MBTA, but we're adjacent. So because we're adjacent, we should follow this.
So is that so people can commute to an MBTA? In other words,
we don't have
get
it
more
going
commuters
through.
in so they can get to an MBTA?
Yeah,
Is that kind of the logic?
exactly. So,
Okay.
So the, with the MBTA is,
Replacing cars is the intent.
Okay, that's more positive.
And affordable housing.
And affordable
Yeah.
housing.
so it's all one big package,
Do they
okay?
have anything, any guidelines of what affordable housing looks like? And one of the reasons I asked that is I don't know who here has been in Danvers a very long time, but Dyer Court, years and years ago, was like a Melrose Place with a swimming pool and young people, and it was beautiful. Well, now it's the projects, and this is where a lot of the issues are coming out of that Dyer Court, which is around the corner from Pine Street. So my thought is, what does affordable housing look like in Danvers? And then the other question on top of that is, what is our governor doing? Because she's trying to make, and I know this to be true, the Section 8, because I have cousins that own a lot of Section 8, I know people that own a lot of Section 8. The state will call them and say, hey, all the properties you own, we're gonna raise your rents. And they just give them more money, and it looks desirable to people that want to get their money and not have their tenants not pay. So I'm being told, and I don't know if this is true, that the governor wants to pay like $2,400 a month for affordable housing, and that falls in line with whatever this is we're building down the street here.
Well, yeah,
I mean, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but.
yeah, there's all sorts of formulas and things that come up with affordable housing, and, there's two different definitions, I forget, but like, so what Danvers has done is if anybody builds 10 units or more, 10% of those have to be affordable housing, okay? And so affordable housing doesn't mean it's Section 8, it just means that it's gonna be cheaper than, market value, okay? So, those Section 8s, I don't know how that works, but I don't even know if we have that here, but that's something that,
Yes, we do.
I know, that's above my pay grade, does anybody know?
Yes, we do.
Just really quick, I have some other information about other sites that they wanna build, and right here
Yeah.
it says affordable housing component, this project, this is a different project,
Yeah.
will fully comply with the affordable housing requirement under section 18-13 and section 29 of the zoning bylaws. 3 units, 2 one-bedroom and 1 two-bedroom unit shall be provided as required. Now, this was for, 63 Maple Street, 10 School Street, and 6 Pillsbury Ave. So I'm assuming they're gonna use the same guidelines, I don't know if that helps you in any way, but I can
But
give
we
you.
don't even know what the guidelines are, you know,
Right,
that's what I'm
yeah, they
trying
have
to
these,
say.
that's why I didn't know having these, you know,
David's
the
a seasoned
information, some of the
professional
help
like you.
sections and the, I'm
Not a
sorry,
professional, but I've been in the trenches for a while.
That's a
The
section law,
definition
sorry.
of affordable housing, as Jim said, there's 2 different levels. You've got low-income housing, which doesn't apply in Danvers. I mean, we got a few spots where there was some built, but when they say affordable housing, it just means that it meets a state formula for what they consider affordable based on the 80th percentile of average income. And what they consider then to be the affordable rental price by state standards is actually higher than what normal market rates for rental is in Danvers, believe it or not. But it meets their definition of affordable. It's a crazy system,
Right.
but that's basically nuts and bolts in a nutshell.
Yeah, and to revise and extend, I mean, there's a formula. There has to be 10% in every town that has to be affordable housing. So I think, and if you don't have that 10%, in other words, they count how many units are in the town, whatever the number is, and if you don't have 10% identified and registered as, affordable housing, then any contractor can come in and do a 40B or whatever it is, and that's what they did like at Swingaway, I think. Is that how they did Swingaway?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they came in and did that. So that's why it's very important that, the selectmen have done a good job of, trying to keep us above 10%.
Well, are they including the highway and all the hotels that we're housing people affordably on, I mean, are they including that in it?
That's
Private
not
property,
permanent.
80% is median income, by the way, not average income, but median.
Median, okay.
But, so there's so many things at play. when it comes to affordable housing and zoning. So that's where we gotta really be careful, you know, and how, you know, we approach this. Again, so if we want to affect any change whatsoever, we have to start with the zoning. And if, like I said, what we're zoned for to stay in line with the MBTA zoning, you know, in these overlay districts, you know, the density is pretty high. And you can end up with buildings, like, I think that Maple Street where that is, it's only 24 units per acre. But coming down High Street, they can have 36 units per acre with a special permit. Okay, so that's already in, you know, in the bylaws, okay? So, I guess the question is, I mean, is everyone, you know, happy with that? Do we wanna, if you wanna make a change, then we need to talk to, you know, either the town meeting members or the selectmen and, you know, do something. And a couple of people have talked about what we maybe could do is have a non-binding ballot question on the local election this year and just say, you know, we'll come up with some words that just say, we want the town, you know, management and select board and to focus on all these zoning bylaws and minimize the impact of all this high-density zoning. And whether it impacts the MBTA zoning or not, that really shouldn't be a concern. Because, you know, zoning, you know, used to be what Danvers wanted Danvers to look like, and that's how we zoned it. But it's getting kind of off track. Did someone raise it? Yeah.
Hey, everyone, my name's Phil, I live on Pine Street, and I'm very happy to see a lot of my neighbors here. I did want to highlight something that I think might be happening a little bit before an opportunity to do a non-binding question. From the planning meeting minutes, it looks like there's going to be a special town meeting on the 3rd of February, and a lot of this, the outline for it, is to codify all these changes to the planning and zoning laws. So one of the reasons why I keyed on this, again, I live on Pine Street, part of this is to expand the Hapleyville zoning district, which is another zoning area where by right they can build upwards of 20 units per acre. What they'd like to include is all the property that is currently on the other side of Pine Street next to Tapley Park. So I think currently Brookwood is there and a few others, but that's in this special town meeting, they're considering whether to allow that. So if you folks are looking for a way to provide input to your town meeting members, I think this is a great opportunity before February to inform them of your opinion so that they can vote for you.
That's actually the point. I mean, just to be clear, all these zoning changes are already like, they're like solidified almost. They have to go, the planning board has been, you know, fine tuning them. This is the process, which is a good, so I wanted to finish that process. So that the planning board owns the zoning, so now they come up with these zoning changes. Now they're gonna present them to the selectmen are gonna, you know, look at them and they're gonna approve them, or have questions and they'll adjust them. Then it's gonna go to the FinCom. And then once the FinCom gets through with it, then it will go to town meeting. And so, usually by the time it gets to town meeting, you know, everybody should know what's going on. But sometimes that's really not the case, okay? And, but that's the process. So what we gotta do is find out when we have, you know, these zoning issues are gonna be in front of the selectmen. I think you may have, you know, we can have public comment there and talk about it there. And then, again, at the FinCom, we can talk about all these different issues there. And then hopefully we'll get enough changes, so, but the final vote is gonna be at the town meeting. And usually, by the time it gets to town meeting, it's pretty solid.
It's a done deal.
It's pretty much, I mean, I mean, in the old days, you know, well, we used to have 96, I think there was 96 or 112 town meeting members. And you know, in the old days, they used to call them the no group. And would, you know, there'd be about 30 or 40 people that would say no, and then everybody's going, yes, and then everything just passes. And we'd have some good debate on, you know, certain issues would pop up that we'd have debate on, but for the most part, it just goes through. And all the, you know, all the fighting goes on before that, okay? So we really need to be more proactive instead of reactive. Right now, a lot of people are looking at what's going on and going, when do we allow this? What's this? You know, well, it's the zoning bylaws that we've got, so we have to understand the process and then work the process. Okay, I'm sorry.
Just to comment, so some of us went to that, we went to the planning board meeting, right?
Yep.
And what they were explaining about that overlay, that Pine Street, I'm Shannon, by the way, I live on Irving Street, so I'm off the high. They want to open it to more commercial use, because right now, my understanding is it's, specifically designated for only certain commercial use. And so they're very restricted in who they can let in to work, like to rent in that space or use that space. Thank you.
Yep.
So, I mean, that seemed like that would be a good thing, to allow them to have other tenants come in that might keep them from turning it into housing, but maybe not, right? But, anyway, I mean, it didn't seem terrible, but.
Well, I think if they put this overlay on that area, that's what it does. It gives you, I call it the real estate mullet. Business on the bottom, party on the top, okay? So that's what you get. And so I think the Tapleyville, I had some notes here, let's get the numbers right. Tapleyville.
But I think the issue too, though, Jim, is that they're saying one thing, and when he stood up with the Brookwood shirt on, seriously, it was very concerning to me, because that was, I don't know who's in this room here from Sylvan Street, we fought them not to put another dock in, they made a lot of noise, that was the Brookwood people.
Yeah, those
So-
two things aren't related though,
Well, I understand that they're
because he's a
probably,
landscape company and
Yeah.
but they're not associated.
but I just feel like he's saying one thing, but he's gonna do something else.
No
Like,
problem.
you know, so I know he wants to open it up to put a different business in there, but I just got a vibe, and I feel like we're gonna let him, the town is gonna let him do what he wants, and then more units are gonna go in there, and we'll never be able to get in and out with the traffic on that street.
Well, so is that the overlay? Because, I mean, right now, by right, you can have 4 units per acre in residence 1 in that area. So with the Tapleyville, with this overlay zone, you can have 14 units per acre. So that's what the update will be. When they, okay, go ahead.
Joanne Gucci. So I listened in on the planning board meeting last week, and my question, they were trying to move the meeting along to the end, and I couldn't get my second question in, but I sort of got the concern was that the businesses right in that area of Tapleyville on Lower Pine, you know, they're limited, and I'm kind of thinking they want to open it up to businesses that are more residential friendly, so they can do like you said, the mullet, the business on the bottom and the residential on the top. That's sort of the feeling that I was getting from that, more so than it was just like, I just want to open it up to other businesses, because right now, doing residential with a landscaping company right there, it's noisy early in the morning, it's not conducive to having residents in there, so I don't know, that's just the feeling that I got, that there's definitely gonna be, if that goes through, some changes down there, and I'm not necessarily in line with those.
Yeah, and
That's
just.
the feeling I got
Yeah.
from the planning board.
Well, one other, you know, what do you call it, I'll get to you. One incidental is that a lot of these things, you know, on the overlay districts, is that it's by, all that extra, commercial and more units are all by special permit. So they have a basic right to do certain things, and then they have to get a special permit to do a little bit more. And so, again, you know, they try to make it conducive to the neighborhood, you know. So, exactly, so that's why we have to watch and be on board for what, to see what's actually happening. Did you have?
Yep, so, regarding the tap rebuild development, but there's no, I mean, there's a ton of land behind it, a ton of land to the left of it, so what will stop it from happening?
There's really nothing you can stop, because by right, they can build 7.5 units there and that's it. But I think the only thing is, and I know that some of the residents had an issue about the contamination of the soil and what's going on with it.
I'm talking about, the purple building, because the ballpark's on one side and
The rail trail.
the historical
Oh, across from
site
Chet's.
is on
Yeah.
the other side.
Tapleyville.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, if that's part of the overlay, I mean, see, right now, it's just, it's it's non-conforming use. It's in a residence. So once they put this overlay on it, then they'll be able to do that, businesses on the bottom and units on the top. I mean, if the residents, don't want it, I mean, and again, that's where, the town meeting members, a lot of times, we don't get, I'm a town meeting member, and no one ever calls up and says, oh, you have a problem. But, so, we gotta contact that, I mean, just out of curiosity, how many town meeting members are actually here? We got,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
So, you need to contact your town meeting members and find out where they stand on all this zoning stuff, okay? And ask them the questions, right? And see what they're gonna do. Ask them if they know what's in this special town meeting coming up. 'Cause a lot of people don't, and some people do.
Can you ask them how they voted on the MBTA voting, approving it, or did you vote yes
You
or
mean
no?
these town meeting
No,
members
no,
that
I'm
are
just
here?
saying, anybody who wants to contact the town meeting, or you could ask them that question.
I guess I could ask them, okay.
Yes, you could, but you voted, yeah.
I voted no. I
I
need a
know.
T-shirt that says no. But, okay, so,
I voted yes.
okay, so if you're a town meeting member and you voted for the zoning bylaws that are in now, raise your hand.
What's the question again?
If you're a town meeting member and you voted for the current bylaws as they are right now, raise your hand.
That's-
If you voted yes.
That happens every year, so it's kind of a tough question.
Yeah. Well,
The special town meeting in February is generally zoning related, so it's all of the issues that come up.
Yeah.
So when you say voted for it, it's not a static, one-off issue, there are a number of issues that come up over time,
right.
so.
Right, yeah, and I think the last town meeting, there was, we missed a few, and I think we added some at the regular town meeting in May, there was some
Yeah, and there's-
zoning we added in. I
Jim, we
think.
had the special town meeting last, I
Oh,
think it
oh,
was
that was-
last
was that
February,
the
and
special-
that was to tweak for the
Oh, that was the
MBTA
tweak,
overlay.
okay, okay.
So I think maybe that's the question is,
And can I just add, I'm Bill Bates, town meeting member from precinct 4. That zoning that we tweaked for the MBTA, we had worked on that for 10 years prior to the MBTA, and Governor Baker coming out and saying he wanted more affordable housing, so they wanted to do this, that's how they approached it with this MBTA zoning. We had 10 years before that done Tapleyville overlay and the Maple Square project, that was the old, what do you call it?
Hot lot.
And so, the reason I voted yes is because the tweaks were very small compared to what, we had already done it. Wasn't a big difference. And it was good for the town because we have the right to still participate in grants, which are very important.
Go ahead, Bill.
If someone's a good writer, you could write it up. You could propose it as a warrant, what you're saying we should be changing to help us. Growth is good up to a point.
yeah.
But someone has to write a good proposal, present it as a warrant article, so that people can vote on it. We can talk now, which is what we're doing, what we'd like to change.
Right.
But to get it on, to go further, someone's gotta write a good warrant
Right.
that explains what we do, well, I don't know, what we do want or don't want, however you wanna word it.
Yeah.
And then present it to the town so it's on,
Right.
other than just us.
Yeah.
I would recommend even before that, it's a lot easier to work with the planning board early on these things, before you get all the way to a separate warrant, because it's, zoning is an incredible amount of detail. If you look at the verbiage when it comes in, everything has to be defined specifically, and that's what they're doing. So, here we're talking kind of an overall, slow the growth down, which I get. But making that and codifying that into zoning language is extremely difficult. Bill talked about the downtown area, and we did do some of that relative to the MBTA's ability to come in and dictate. But that,
Very little. It was already there.
yeah,
So what
Already
are the
there.
grants that you mentioned? Like, what do we need the grants for?
There's,
Those are the things that we can't afford. We apply for grants, the only thing is, to get some kind of a state grant, it comes with strings. And you might want, like, what you're gonna end up with, we know, we would like to think, we want the right thing.
But what
What
are they
is it
for?
gonna-
Give me an example of what you would need a grant
paving,
for.
street work,
work.
infrastructure.
It's more of an
Yeah,
improvement.
parks is a big one.
Crosswalk curving.
Yeah.
All the
The
things
the
that
state
we-
aid grants are just grants, it's the money the state gives us out of the general
Local aid.
government budget.
Don't they give
It
us,
goes to-
us that anyway, because we pay
Yeah,
taxes?
no,
No,
that's the
no,
problem, if you vote against
You
this
have to-
stuff,
there's
you don't
rules.
get the
You
money.
gotta follow the
That was the
rules.
problem.
Yeah.
It's called
The
blackmail.
big misconception is we pay property tax and the property tax funds the town. That is not true. I'm not sure what the percentage is right now.
9% right now. 9% is state local aid. We get local aid
Through-
worth 9%
Okay.
for our local. But again, it comes down to, it's complicated stuff. I've been an elected town meeting member for 30 years. I'm one of the few town meeting members that goes to every single FinCom meeting, every planning board meeting that I can get to, or I watch them on TV. You have to be informed, but you're dealing with people's property rights, so we've gotta be careful. It's important stuff. And we tried to, we did limit. There was talk of more, per acre. And Jim and other people and Mark and I, and we said, no, that's not what we want. But you got, the devil's in the details. It's really, but we're doing the best we can, we really are.
Okay, but to add insult to injury on, forget about the density, it's also the parking, see, they,
Yeah.
And the schools
they're,
and the
they're
police.
increasing
the
the
fire,
density,
water.
and then
Utilities.
they're minimizing the parking, which is just like a recipe for disaster. I know that's the whole concept.
The other part of the concept that isn't there, and I agree with you, is a public transportation component.
Right.
When you, it's called 40R, which is where a lot of this stuff started from, it's in the same state chapter. And with that, the idea was you build villages where you have commercial on the first floor and then 2 to 3 stories of residential on top of that. So people can shop and live in a more condensed area, that there is less need for automobiles.
But-
And then beyond that, in its original concept, was to have public transportation in there as well. And that's where in Danvers, that's the component that we're missing. So you're right, we're building, we're bringing more people in, they're going to have vehicles, and parking and traffic is going to be a significant issue. And it's not being mitigated at all by public transportation, either by bus or.
Well, they had it on Pine Street and they got rid of it, right in front of my house practically, right in front of your house. Linda, they had it and they got rid of it,
What, the
cause the bus used to come by every day, I've lived here 30 years.
Empty,
Come
empty,
by,
nobody
there
was
was no
riding.
idea. So they got rid of it,
For
yeah.
half an hour
But
empty, and then it would drive
The
them
point
home.
is, what you just said, Jim, is the reason we're all sitting here. The traffic, the parking, it's very dangerous. We talked to somebody when we left that last meeting. Their child backed out of a house on Pine Street and got literally creamed, and they had to reconstruct the accident because coming up over that lip where they wanna build the 7.5 units, I don't know how they're gonna build a half unit, but 7.5 units on Pine Street, right across from Hyde, does not make sense to the normal person. And nobody in that room that was sitting there, we were arguing with, had even walked up there to see what was going on,
You know what
right?
the problem is though, folks, you have to keep in mind, that you cannot say, I don't want development because of traffic. The Supreme Court has ruled that 25 years ago and said, No, you can't stop a landowner.
There must
From-
be exceptions to that,
Can I
that
finish?
sounds
Just look at-
ridiculous.
You can't, and the same thing with water. You can't say to a developer, we are on water restrictions. We're not gonna let you develop.
Oh, come on.
Or, but it's the
Schools,
facts, and you know what?
fires, police.
Think about it, folks, you wouldn't want them to be able to do it either, because let's say that you or I weren't in good with people that run the town. They could sit there and say, oh, we're not gonna let Bill do a development because of traffic, because of water.
Makes sense.
And the federal court said, no. If you let Bill do it, you have to let John do it. They all have to meet the same rules.
Okay, all right, okay. But, to your point, and that's right, again, everybody can build to what the current zoning bylaws
Yep.
are.
Right.
But, what we all need to understand, and what I'm trying to convey, is that we have to build that into our zoning bylaws. We don't wanna restrict them and say you can't build because of traffic. We have to build our zoning bylaws so that they meet our streets and our capacities. Because
Yes.
when you read the zoning bylaws, and the first section is purpose and application, it goes blah, 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 and it says that, as it may be amended, including but not specifically limited to the protection and promotion of public health, safety, and welfare by preventing overcrowding the land, preventing undue concentration of population, providing for adequate light and air, conserving open space, natural cultural resources, facilitating the adequate provision of transportation, water supply, drainage, sewerage, parks, schools, open space. So what we need to do is make sure that our zoning bylaws reflect all these things that they're saying they do. And they don't, because they're actually making it worse by increasing density and lowering the parking requirements and everything else that goes with it. It's a recipe for disaster. And when you talk about water, I know I've heard people say this before, but nothing ever gets done. There should be, if you're gonna build, more than 4 units, then you're gonna have to pay a premium for every hookup of water. I don't know how we.
They do.
Do we do that?
Swamp fee,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
There is?
They do.
We do that?
Yeah.
And what is the fee?
It's-
We don't know.
The fee isn't enough to upgrade the water system.
No.
Well, like Bill Clark always said, we don't have a water problem, we have a storage problem. We need to be able to store water. I don't know how you do that, but
Jim.
working on it.
Let her.
Oh, well, sort of, I know Bill and I were talking last week, a couple weeks ago after the select board meeting, and I was saying, geez, these developers should have a developer's fee, and you said there is one.
Great example,
Yeah.
the new one at Danvers Hardware.
Right, you said $33,000.
$44,103, traffic mitigation fee. So the town went to them and said, okay, you wanna do ABC, and it's a formula too, and again, that's one of the beauties of why I love government, is because it applies to everybody. It's not just, who's popular, it's everybody. So they said to that developer, you wanna build over Danvers Hardware? $44,103 for traffic mitigation that the town will spend downtown around your project. It has to be spent in that area. So and that's just one of them. I don't know what the mitigation fee was for Maple
So-
Square. I'd love to.
So my
I
point
just didn't look it
is,
up.
so my point is, we talked about that, sorry, Mike. Can we somehow, I don't know where that formula comes from, but can we tweak that
Oh,
formula?
absolutely.
So we can hike those fees up?
Sure, yeah.
Because, I think, I like, if they're gonna build, I don't like seeing 7.5 units on 56,000 square feet of land. I think that's too dense. I'm talking about 180 through 182 Pine Street, that's my example. So, I think, I like how we can tweak it where you gotta open up, it has to be less units per acre, or
More parking,
more
open
parking,
space.
more open space.
They don't need 2,400 square feet for those units, because that's how
No,
big they are.
no,
That's
so
a lot.
I think those, in those areas, we can definitely, definitely tweak, and I really am for hiking these development fees much higher than $43,000. I think, you know, because,
They're making
I mean,
millions.
here's the thing,
They're
we
making
can't,
millions.
we can't say, as Bill said, by law, you know, it's gonna put more burden on our schools, which it already is. But, you know what, we can put more money towards the schools. You know, the developer's fee has to go
Yeah,
towards
that's the
that.
development fee,
Just
you know,
one.
and
You
then
know,
they pay
so
their taxes.
we
And can I
definitely
just
need
add
that.
too, don't forget folks, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you were not allowed to have residential in downtown Danvers, anywhere. You could only have commercial, you could have hot water. So we, as town meeting members, said, you know what, we can do better than that. We do wanna let people live above a business downtown. It might be somebody that's downsizing from up in my area down to, they don't wanna leave Danvers. But you couldn't have a single residential unit on High Street and Maple Street until we changed that zoning 10 years ago. And the Tapley overlay was part of it too, because that's where Daniela's came from. That was part of that. And we did some things right, but we can always tweak it, we can always do better.
So, in reference to what you were just saying, this mitigation fee, does it apply the same in these townhouses that they wanna do on Pine Street as the commercial part of downtown Danvers? Because 43,000, you know what I'm thinking, what does it cost for one traffic light? You know, I mean, a number that comes to me is like 100,000 or something, you know, I mean, it's a big number. But when you got a little residential place like that, but we got a major problem with the traffic, are they gonna come in there and put traffic light stop signs and enforce the parking around that?
They can force the developer to do certain
do
things,
that.
yes.
Because
They have
this
to
is,
provide spaces, a certain number of spaces based on the number of
Yeah,
units.
they don't.
yeah.
They're not doing that.
Yeah, we've been
And you
through
know, the
that.
funny thing is, at 23 or 2,400 square feet, I think what happened in our neighborhood is that when they, what's the number of the other, 184, what's the one that,
178 is the
170.
bulk of it.
170.
where they have, no, that, they have that other little unit there? There's a family that lives there, and he started renting out his bedrooms. And what ended up happening was, they only have so many parking spaces in their development, and they started parking on Hyde Street, which made it very difficult.
And
So that's where, and all his trucks and stuff are not registered, there's a lot of stuff going on. He lost the parking space, so if you're looking at that back end of Sylvan, where most of, Pine, where most of us live, there was that house that initially was there just as a house, right next to it, he had that as parking, that wasn't like deeded to the house, but he always used it.
That's right.
Well, he took advantage of it, so Sylvan, whoever owned Sylvan at the time, the Sylvania, took it away from him. So that's when the overflow of parking went out onto Hyde Street, it made it difficult for all of us.
They were burning fires
Yeah.
there, it was crazy over there.
The
I
other
walked my
issue
dog,
is
it was,
they're
you know,
deeding 2 spots to each of these units, plus they're only giving 4 guest parking spots. We all know we have more, if you're gonna have over 2,000 square feet, where most of the neighbors in that area don't even have 2,000 square feet in their own house, and they have parking. Like, I made my driveway bigger, cause I have 4 kids. So, I didn't want them parking across the street on Crestline, that's not fair to them. So I made more parking spots, you could fit 15 cars in my driveway now. I have a lot of people that come to my house constantly. So that's not right, and they're talking about free space, they're gonna have like a garden area with a gazebo. Screw the gazebo, throw more spaces on there, they're not gonna use it anyway. You know that condo, the brick one that's set back next to my house? Their whole backyard, now I've lived there almost 30 years, the whole backyard, no one's ever been in it. I've never seen a person in that green space, the 30 years I've lived there, ever once. And they have plenty of parking. None of those people, and I don't know who's on Crestline here, but none of those people have ever parked across the street, ever. There's never been a peep, it's been a nice area, they've not a problem at all, and but they own them, they own the units, but there's plenty of parking, they need to have more parking if they're gonna they wanted to put 8 units up, I think that's turned down, right, now it's only 7, I think it's only 7, right? There's no
They
parking.
continue, so they're gonna, so come January, they're gonna have a meeting, and depending on, they talk behind the scenes, can I do this, can I do that, how about this, how about that, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, the issue is gonna be, can we put our patios in the industrial strip? And then if they have to move stuff, then, and if they can't get the other unit, they're still gonna be behind the parking, because I think the parking is only two, was it, two parks per
and
unit?
Four guests.
And-
I thought it was one and the garage space.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
two cars.
so
Oh, in the
two-
garage, so
yeah,
someone
two
actually
park-
can pull into
so-
the garage.
Yeah, so
right.
they get two parking areas per unit, and for every 4 units, they have to have an extra, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So there'll be 9 for 4 units. as
Well, you know,
opposed
they
to
did
8.
talk about the environmental aspect with regards to putting those other units in where that other little horseshoe is. The issue with that, and I want everybody to think about this, that grass where they put those other 4 units in, that was grass. That wasn't the asphalt in the Sylvania unit there. So this project, they wanna rip up asphalt, where they didn't do that for the last one. I know everybody, that was the backyard to those 2 houses in front. So they really need to test that soil, and we need to see what they're doing. 'Cause from everyone I know that's ever worked there, I know a lot of people who work there, they're like, they were crushing light bulbs all over the place. So I can't, there's gotta be some mercury or something in the ground over there, so that might stop them dead in their tracks.
Well,
No, but I
Linda
think-
did find a DEP report, there's a whole file on Sylvania,
It's very long,
and so,
and I need somebody that's,
but it's
has
old.
experience.
Yeah, we need someone to go through it, so is anybody from the
Any
Pine
volunteers?
Street area, you know, have interest in going through,
Oh.
there you go.
All right.
So,
What,
Linda-
make sure I get your
He
name.
knows. You, Andy.
Oh, Andy, oh, I
Oh,
can't see,
okay.
sorry.
yeah, she has a website, and they got all this information, I printed out some, and I'll just pass that down to Andy, so you can start
That's
now.
what Andy does. for
That's just the first 8 pages of 200, okay?
Right.
But it's pretty interesting.
Thank you for printing that out.
And, but, I mean, those are the only things that are gonna be able to haul any, you know, if, by right. If they can build this by right, the only thing that's gonna stop us, we have an environmental issue or some other, I don't know. But it's gotta be, you know, really serious. Okay.
I'm sorry, just the, sort of what,
Andrea, I'm sorry.
Andrea was saying before was, I think a little bit of the rub here with the town is when I was at the select board meeting, there was a couple of action plans, I know they were following up with those trucks and those, I mean, those cars, they're not inspected. One has an expired inspection sticker from 2023, but they have a plate sticker, so they have a registered plate that's 2026. I don't know how that happens. And then one has a inspected reject sticker, which I think only supposed to last for 30 days by law.
The truck was gone this afternoon.
Oh, he drives it. He drives it. I see it, it goes back and forth. He's New York, but he always parks there. And that's had a reject sticker for
Years.
years. And, but yet but their plates are being registered, so I don't know what's going on. I did speak a while ago when the boat was parked on the corner. I happened to be walking by with my dog, and I knew one of the officers that was there one night, and I was talking to him, and then the wife of the president of that condo association was walking her dog, so we got into a conversation about it, and the owner of that house, he's not supposed to be renting those rooms. That's in violation of his condominium bylaws. So he's in trouble with them, and then he couldn't park the vehicles there because they're unregistered, they're uninspected. And so he's getting fined by them, and he's, you know, and then everyone's harassing him, but
It's not his fault.
he's driving the neighborhood crazy. And I mean, I think this is sort of why on that corner, people are like, no more, because we can't control that, and, oh God, is 178 gonna come to this, and now it's gonna be more. We go to the town, we complain to the town, we want action. Now, I was at the select board meeting 2 weeks ago, they were supposed to follow up with the police chief about those trucks and that car. It's still sitting there. So, you know, my question is, and I know things take time,
Yeah.
I go to the transportation committee. I say, they're parking there. It took me a year through the transportation committee to get a sign on the other side of the street to say no parking this close to the corner.
Right.
That's it. I
Right.
mean, we debated no parking at all, but that's not fair to the residents that live there.
Right.
No
right.
overnight parking,
Yeah.
but Linda needs that on her side, for her house, and it's just,
Yeah.
it's hard, and I think
Yeah.
this is where the neighbors are coming from.
Yeah, well, we'll just,
I
on
know.
that one issue, I just
Right.
wanna say that, in the business world, it's always, talk is cheap, you gotta put it in writing, okay, so you brought it up, no action has been taken,
Oh, the email's coming.
yeah, you gotta, not only put it in
The
email,
email's coming.
but you need to put it in email, and you need to
It's gonna be Christmas stuff, yeah.
Spread it around.
put it in email,
Document
and
yeah.
make sure you get
I
a bunch
did.
of neighbors to sign, say, and it's just not me, and get a bunch of other people to sign,
Yep.
and then send it
Your
to,
names, guys. It's-
send it to,
Yes.
Dan, you were gonna talk to the police chief, send it to the police chief, and CC a couple other people who may care.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it, exactly.
Because
And
we
Christmas
need
is
some
been crazy,
accountability,
I have to
and
sit down.
that's it.
Yep,
And,
yeah.
If she's gonna do that, she needs to make sure that she gives everybody that she knows would be involved, or could be involved, so they can't say, we didn't know about this. Because that's an excuse for you. Well, they don't even know about the drones on the East Coast and the crap that's coming out of our federal government.
yeah,
We're just talking about a local issue, but you have to make sure you send it to everybody, so they can't use it as.
well, actually, that's a good idea, I like that, what we gonna do, Joanne,
Yeah.
when you do that, just take the letter verbatim and post it on Patch, right? Right?
Oh, God.
And then, and then just post it on, and then you can just post the pointer on Facebook if you want, Again, government is very lethargic, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, and it's designed that way. We don't want the government to overreact, I'd rather have them be too slow, but when there's something going on, they have, they're supposed to be representing, we the people, okay, so we have to hold their feet to the
So
fire.
what are our next steps, Jim? What can we do here tonight to move forward? Like, what's our next step? Like, I feel like there's a lot of people here. Like, I wanna do something. We need to take some action, and we need to take back what, we have a cute
Right.
little town. We don't want it to be Peabody. I moved out of there to come here because it's quiet. It's getting louder, and I have to say, downtown's gonna be a nightmare when all that stuff opens up. So, and maybe we do put a whole bunch of, if we need grants and more money, we make them give us more money. If you're gonna fill our schools, and by the way, we have a nice little electric company here. If it gets too bogged down, then they're gonna bring in some big electric company, and we're gonna be paying more. We pay a lot in taxes, I don't know about the rest of you, but I pay like $10,000. That's a lot of money, and I'm sure everybody else in this room does too. We are the citizens here in Danvers, and we're not the only ones that are worried about that MBTA thing. People in Middleton, people in Wenham, we pay, our houses are worth, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. We don't need people moving in, I'm sorry, we don't need people moving in that don't have the money telling us what to do.
Well, exactly, and so the next steps, what we really have to do, you want?
Just to comment on what she's saying, and we did the zoning downtown to accommodate the MBTA, their rule. At the meeting, we did what we did in anticipation of being told. I asked, now that we've done what you've asked us, are we gonna get the transportation back? And in talking to the two representatives, I heard, we're working on it.
I know the
That's
MBTA
not an answer.
boss was just
I always
here.
ask, just tell me you're working on it, and I have to keep asking.
I'm working on my bucket list.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but next steps, again, what we gotta do is we gotta follow the process, and these things are happening live right now. So we have to follow these zoning bylaws as they're happening right now. And the next step, either there's gonna be another planning board meeting, or the planning board is gonna take these zoning bylaw changes to the selectmen. And then there'll be a public meeting, and they're gonna go over them, and then if you got issues and questions, that's where you gotta bring them up. And then hopefully they'll make some tweaks and they'll listen to you and update it. Then you gotta follow it from the selectmen, then when the selectmen done, they're gonna pass it off to the FinCom. And FinCom is gonna, and we gotta go to that meeting and make sure that they don't change anything and everything stays and it keeps working to our advantage.
The selectmen will be hearing these amendments on January 7th.
Right, cutting it close.
Well, no, in January
Well,
8th, the
February
warrant
3rd.
articles close.
When?
January 8th. Warrant articles close. That what was said last night. Now, let me just
Okay.
wrap up a little bit. I like to wrap up, but the horse is way out of the barn on downtown Danvers. We gave that away.
Yeah.
We were dictated by state law to impose the zoning, and what happened is this was all laid out by the state legislature, and our legislators were well aware of what was happening. The problem is that we were planning in advance. Bill is absolutely right that we were planning in advance to make some changes, but then we got the gun to our head and said, you will make those changes because it's law now. So that is the horses out of the barn. The one thing that you have to watch out for now is the little tweaking that's going on in the background. Tapleyville, Pine Street, whatever they want to change for zoning, that's what they want done. The planning board and the zoning board is appointed by the selectmen. So there's a resource right there to beat up on the selectmen to give us back our culture and our zoning of our town. The planning board is not appointed by the selectmen, it's appointed by the former town manager. And now we have an interim town manager. But the congestion and the density are beyond our control right now because we've gave that away. State legislators are not stepping up to the plate to protect Danvers residents. So my solution is a definite moratorium on any new zoning changes until we evaluate that, and do we like what's going on?
No.
Then what you need to do is stand up and be counted. And I think there should be a warrant article on the town meeting, and all it takes is 100 signatures. And write up a warrant article saying moratorium starts February 3rd. Or right now, because what we're not letting the horse out of the barn even further.
Is there a format, I'm assuming, for this warrant, like a specific way of writing it out?
Oh, that's easy.
But not to do that, you can't do a moratorium.
Well, I was gonna ask, what's the viability of a moratorium? Can you impose?
No.
The town meeting can authorize it, and then it has to go to a referendum to the residents.
It's gotta be legal, though. It's gotta be
It is legal.
Well,
It depends on how it's worded.
Can I,
Well,
can I
that's,
just offer a little different approach, rather than trying to stop everything, which is, you can try it, but you're not gonna be successful
So
doing
in other
it.
words, you could write
Well,
it, you could
wait a
write
minute,
it.
he wasn't trying to stop everything.
No,
You
slow
want
it
a
down.
moratorium, that's what a moratorium is.
Well,
Anything new.
Oh,
yeah.
Stop and
but
tow.
it's on zoning changes.
Can I
It's
just
not
make,
on
can I
building,
make a
it's
point?
on zoning
Right.
changes.
right.
A moratorium on zoning changes, you gotta, see, that's what you said, not building,
Look
so,
into it, look, I don't know.
so,
If I may, I've heard some very specific, now, just so you know, I was a selectman for a decade, and I've been a town meeting member forever, but I live up on Cedar Hill, I live up in the north part of town, so I don't live what you guys live day in and day out,
tell them who your
okay?
name is, tell them who your name is.
Mike Powers, I think I said it earlier.
What is it?
Okay.
You're wearing a
Mike
hat.
Powers. In any event, I've heard some very specific density numbers that might be more amenable to you. So if you're gonna start putting, petitions together, I would be very specific with it. On this overlay, on the Tapleyville overlay, we would like to have the density limited to and give a number. That's actionable on the part of the planning board, that's actionable on the part of the board of selectmen. Yeah, and finance committee, and remember, the town meeting is the final sayer, but if you come in with, general comments from the town meeting, by then, you're right, it's too late, because all of the detail work has been done. Right now, you can propose that, if you can get 100 of your neighbors together to say, yeah, we don't need 7.5, we want 5, or, I don't know, whatever the number is that you think is reasonable, I would recommend you do that.
Well, I don't even think we have to wait for a warrant article or a ballot question, because
I'm talking about a petition to go to the next
Yeah,
planning board meeting with.
it's a good idea.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say, to the next planning board, or to the next selectman, whatever it is, we gotta go there and say, this Tapleyville overlay is way too big for this area, and you don't address the parking is pathetic, okay, so. we need
Okay,
to-
and again, if I may,
Yeah.
don't
Don't
call
be
it
that
pathetic,
specific.
come up
Okay.
with a number, we
Yeah, I
would
know, I
like
know.
X amount of spaces per unit, or
Exactly.
something. Give the committee something that they can work with, and I would do it with the planning board, I wouldn't wait for the selectmen or finance committee or anybody else, because it's harder to change it, because these warrants gain momentum as they go. And if you can work early, you'll have your best chance.
But what if everyone still objected to having any units put in?
It's not gonna
I'm sorry?
It's not gonna happen, I
It's
don't
not
think
gonna
so.
happen.
You don't want to
It's
take
already
the rights away
out.
from property owners, 'cause
Right.
it could be you next year.
Yeah.
Take them away from you.
It almost is, yep.
So we're gonna be careful, we gotta do it carefully.
If there's gonna be enough people there, we might wanna notify the town that we would need the great room up at the senior center, because if everybody squeezes into
Yeah.
the room down at town hall,
Mhm.
it'll be too crowded, and then when someone tries to get the point across, it's very, I don't say convoluted, but it's very disruptive for the meeting.
Do we have a town lawyer that would help the town people put something like that
No,
together?
no.
Of
The
like,
town lawyer does
someone
not
say
work
that,
for the
how
town
much we
people, he
do?
works for the government.
He'll look
He's
at
on
it,
the other-
generally
he's on
tell
the
you
other
if
side.
it's no
Do
good,
we know
it's about all
someone
the-
to put that
Well,
together
as a,
in our group?
as a rule of thumb, I mean, Mark and I have done a few of these things that have, crashed and burned, some of them actually flew. But if you write something, you could bring it to, the town manager and just ask him to review it and see what he thinks, I mean, at least we had that open door with Steve when he was here. This, a temporary one, I don't know. But I think Mike Landers often offered, during all the meetings, he didn't like a lot of these citizen things, and he said, if you got one, bring it to me.
To me.
Didn't he say that?
Oh, yeah.
He did.
He
Do it
did.
for free.
I think we should take him up on it. So,
And you have the structure for the
Well,
language, you already have the work that the planning board's done, you wanna change the numbers in that report, you don't have to rewrite it, you don't have to reinvent the
Well, I
wheel.
don't wanna keep them from building, I think it's
Right,
nice to
right,
make pretty things, I mean, and it is, but the parking over there and just just the whole landscape is dangerous anyway, for anybody, if you're driving up and down that street,
It's a question of the end value of the community.
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to
So you
say
get
before we
density,
go
you
in,
get
is that,
Make those your target points.
is that Andrea Bianca
Brancato,
and Linda Pocari? And are you part of the Pine Street group as well?
Of course she is.
Part of the posse, yes,
Okay.
I'm from Pine Street.
Okay, so
I'm
I see Joanne
Yeah, I'm
Lugosi.
from Pine Street.
Okay,
Fellow
so
town
I mean,
meeting
they're
member.
basically
Fellow
the leaders,
town
so
meeting
you guys need to get together and have, put something together, like Mike was saying, specific, nuts and bolts, and it's on the table now, right? I mean, cause they're trying to put the overlay into Tapleyville,
Yeah.
right in that area, Pine Street now. So, now's the time to do it and write something up and bring it to, either call it Mike Landers.
I don't know, do you know?
Write it Mike Landers.
I know,
He's
I've
on the
never
planning
met him,
board.
but.
I don't know, like, he's on the FinCom.
Yeah.
He
He's a
open
local
invitation, I
attorney.
believe.
Yeah.
He's in the
Public
book.
Yeah,
invitation.
we can,
we can chat GPT it and then have
yeah,
it.
we can definitely put something
Is that
together.
what you offered? Mike?
Jim,
Yeah, exactly.
when someone talks to someone and they say to you, we'll do this or we'll do that, end it with, I want it in writing, because
Yeah.
what I say to you now, once I go out
Yeah.
the door,
Yeah.
that's it, it's as far as it goes, because we've seen in Danvers what people, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that.
Okay.
Once you go out the door, they're gonna do what's best for them, not
So right
necessarily.
now, we're talking about just that Pine Street piece. The other piece is Tapleyville, which is also on Pine Street.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
So-
so there's a lot of things that.
I just think specifically, like, I feel like they wanna change it, and I understand to make it
Yeah.
not just landscaping, but be able to put other businesses in there, but if we can do this again for that particular piece where there can be some sort of I don't even know, amendment, or I don't even know,
Well, they would have to update the bylaw to change the density and
Yeah.
the parking, so you gotta be specific. The overlay says this, it should say that.
Yeah,
Boom,
I
boom.
think there just
And be
needs to
careful of the
more.
unintended consequences too. Right now at Tapleyville, this property we're talking about, it's commercial, it's very limited, it's a non-conforming use, it's allowed to be there. If he can't do anything else, he can go residential. And he can do another, what you're facing at 182,
I
180.
think it's 14 units.
So we wanna be careful with you, it's a compromise, you gotta,
I know.
you gotta work with them.
And just by way of the process, by you getting it early now, you are trying to affect the original report of the planning board, so that you're way ahead of the game in terms of the warrant. You're not trying to change a warrant, which has already been approved by the Board of Selectmen and passed forward, or coming to the select board
Yeah.
to be passed forward. So, affecting change now is much easier than waiting
Yep.
2 steps down
I
the road.
agree.
If you can do
Because
it.
they're not gonna go backwards, they're only gonna go forward.
Can't walk through.
Should there be something in there about the water? I hear what you're saying, like you can't, that doesn't make sense to me to say, like, I can't, like, if you're saying that they have to be allowed to build on their property regardless of the supply of water, but it impacts me, like, I already own a home and I can't water my grass, or I'm at stage 6, and there's like, so.
But the zoning laws are in place.
Right.
And everybody who buys property in Danvers buys those property with the guarantee that they can do what the zoning law says they can do. So it worked out great, because they didn't want people, the towns to say, oh, we don't have enough water, so you can't build your house there. And that wouldn't be fair. If he meets the zoning laws, he should be able to build his house. So the court said, infrastructure is not a criteria to stop development. You can't say, we got too much traffic, we don't have enough water. If you don't have enough water, the courts say, supply the water, because you zoned your town for certain things.
So the town is not holding up their end of the deal?
No, it's been, this is an evolving thing. Zoning is to protect you and me as much as it is anybody.
The protection, by the way, isn't with the water coming in, the protection and the work that the town done is in the sewers going out. You can't put a septic system in anymore, you have to hook
Who
up.
pays for the water lines? So like, I know Maple
We do,
Square.
we
So,
taxpayers.
I mean, it's taken a year on Locust Street to get that water line down
No.
there,
Yeah.
and they're still not done. That's a year's worth of work. We all paid for that?
Yeah.
Why isn't it developed?
But yeah, we have to ask for a grant for the grant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
Yes,
if
I
they have the
think
water
that's,
line?
I mean, I think that's one of the things that, it's like if we're gonna have all this development, and this is just in general, and if we're gonna have all this development in town, if we have to put in new water lines, if we have to do the developers should be paying for this.
No,
And because it's by
you
the
can't-
laws.
Yeah, it's the town, it's the town's sewer system, it's the town's pipes. Again, they have to give the services that their zoning allows.
But does the developer of the property have to pay for the hookup?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
they
there's a lot of
pay for the
fees
hookup,
and, oh yeah,
lot of
And
fees,
everything on the
yeah.
inside.
and everything on the inside. It's just,
So the hookup
the
in
street
the street,
Yeah,
is us,
but if we have to run, if the town, meaning we have to run the lines, the town pays for the
that's
lines,
infrastructure.
that's
Yes.
infrastructure, yeah.
but the specific hookup is
On
on
the
the
developer.
property developer.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to take a quick PSA, public service announcement, so if you want to keep abreast of everything that this group is gonna be doing, there's a a sign-up sheet somewhere.
Yeah.
Where is that? Yeah, so make sure you sign it, and you know, I'm old and I can't see, so,
Right big.
yeah, try to write, you know, so I can read it.
Also, the last meeting we were at, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, cause, I mean, I guess I sorta was aware of it, but you can go onto the town website and click on all the different, aspects of the town and get emails from them to stay abreast of what's going on. I know that might be a little cumbersome, whatever, and you could choose, some of us were choosing what we wanted, I just clicked everything just to
And
kinda.
even the projects too, each project, that's how I found out
Yeah.
about the $44,103.
Just to let you know.
It's on that Danvers hardware website, it says that's what they had to pay.
Yeah, just
So
to let
it's-
you know if you wanna stay in.
I have one other question. One of the things that I found curious is when these developers are coming before the zoning board or the planning board, that they don't, or when they go into town hall to apply for this, they don't have to specifically say whether this development right away is gonna be apartments or condos.
Right, right.
Market driven is the term they like.
Yeah, it's market driven. Is there a way to kind of close that loophole a little bit and say, you really have to let us know from the outset that this is what this project is going to be? I don't know if that's a
You'd have to
state
change the law, because you're taking the right of somebody who owns
Changing the law.
property to say, I'm gonna make an
Well, if I-
apartment, or I'm gonna make a condo.
But the thing is, let's say I wanna do something on my house, and I say, well, I'm gonna do this. I'm not sure right now what I wanna do, when you know, I'm going to the planning department, well, depends, you know,
You don't get any
what I'm
permits
saying?
though that way, you won't get a permit to do
Right,
anything.
but they're getting the permit, and.
No, but I don't,
In a
again,
way.
are you concerned with condos versus apartments, is that where you're going?
A little, yes, yeah.
I don't
mean,
know how you, I don't know if you
I
can
mean,
do that,
I-
we can find out.
You know, I mean, condos are definitely, you know, you have ownership in the town, I mean, it's much better.
But not everybody can afford a condo, too.
Right,
We
but
do
I-
some apartments.
But I think, but I think
Hmm?
at the initial stage, I think the town should know what is going to be going in
We
there
can ask
instead of
them that,
whether
right,
it's
we can
market
find out.
driven or not.
But that's
Yeah,
not a
you
neighborhood
can't.
for apartments, it's just not.
Right,
That
but
street
I
is
mean,
not-
but that just kinda concerns me is
They can move
they
somewhere
can,
else.
they can say this is.
Not in
this-
my neighborhood, is that what I'm hearing?
That you can't.
No, it's not a neighborhood for
That you
us.
can't
You know,
No, it's not.
A quick question.
That's an
yeah,
Tell them to move
It's
somewhere
just a
else.
quick question, you know, when there's something gonna happen as far as building goes, you notify the abutters. And if I'm not, maybe I'm not correct, but I think it's, what is it, within 300 feet?
Something like that, yeah.
Can that be expanded, or is that a
No,
law?
They said no, we had a whole conversation on that, it cost too much money for the paper to send, they had a whole
Well, you have to have a
conversation
limit,
about it.
you can't, for 8 condos, we can't notify the whole 25,000 people in Danvers.
No.
But like you say, can it be expanded?
Can it?
I would think so, we should find out.
They didn't even
Yeah.
notify the proper people anyways for the
Yeah.
Sylvania
Yeah.
this problem.
construction that they wanna do.
Yeah.
The neighbor to the right of me did not get a notification.
Yeah,
People way down at the end of Sylvan Street, at that intersection where Collins is, they got a notification there, like almost a mile away.
Kind of feel
So
kind
it
of
doesn't
here
make
and
sense.
there.
I had to walk around and hand out
yeah.
175 flyers to everybody in my neighborhood, just to let them know, you know, so that's a huge problem with us as well, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody should know, like, I think everybody in the town should know. I would have stood up and, like, fought against, Maple Street, but who knew? It was all of a sudden there.
Oh, it was all over the place, we did it for 10 years, we were working on it, 10 years.
I don't know.
Believe me, there was plenty of meetings.
I haven't been, this is like the third meeting I've been to.
Okay, I wanna call for.
I don't go to them, so
Okay,
I
I'm
don't
gonna-
know.
Okay, I'm gonna call for, just for, you, then you, next, okay. But, at the last, special town meeting on zoning, I stood up there and I got, and I said that there's 28,000 people in this town. And I can guarantee you, 90% of them don't have any clue what the heck you guys are doing. There is no way
Ignorance
in
is
heck.
not,
I
sorry.
understand, I mean, you can tell me oh, we've advertised it, we put it
Yeah,
out.
don't
But you
make
know
fun
what?
of us for not knowing, it's.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay,
making fun
okay,
of you,
okay,
but don't make fun of me.
I
I'm
just-
working hard,
I'm
I'm
not making fun of
volunteering.
you.
We all made our points, but I just wanna make a point
I
that
think
here,
it's in the
with,
conversation
you know, in the
now
old, in the old,
trying to get communication better for
It should be
residents.
yeah.
Because I think sort of what Linda's point is, and a lot of people are busy.
And we don't have the newspapers like this.
Yeah,
gentleman.
people don't get the newspapers, and it's this big in
Used to
the
be able to read it
newspaper,
in the paper.
Right.
and it's not online, but, you know,
And you
people
can't
are
trust what you
busy.
see online.
Well,
People
no,
are
no,
busy
no.
with families
Yeah.
and
But-
jobs and
But
life.
that's another thing that I brought up at the last planning board.
We have
And-
to-
And
yeah.
I mean, Dave started it, cause he
Yeah,
had some
we've talked
issues
about
that he
it,
didn't get
Mike being-
notified, that there was
Yeah, I know
surprise.
Mike, I've
And
talked
so
about
I got up and said that,
Mike's been saying
the,
it.
you know, we got, you know, the newspapers the last century. We have all this, you know, online technology. The town's gonna do a better job with their website
Yeah.
to reach out, okay? And the
We have
technology is there, and that's
We have
cheap.
Danvers
It's
page.
free.
Yeah.
You
We
press
have the
it-
Danvers
you list-
page on
You list the
Facebook.
names and
Put it
email
on
addresses,
there.
you press the button,
Exactly.
we can get bonds
And
over
like
to
this
you.
lady said, that's a perfect example of can we extend that
Yeah.
notification?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, we should find out, we should
Yeah.
find
No,
out.
that's,
By the way,
that's,
you're
that's
supposed
the
to
conversation.
do that all the time.
But they're taking
They were
with the
against
You
it.
can,
blogs.
you
They-
can
they
sign
don't
up
make
for it, like you
That's right.
subscribe to
Oh,
the
yeah.
newspaper.
That's
I
right.
know,
That
it
would
was
be the
the
way to
town
go.
meeting members, weren't you there?
Yeah.
We talked about it for 15 minutes,
Yeah.
and they were
Talked about, I
basically
think, the-
upset about, they think that everybody, they think all of us should not get paper in the mail. We should all be abreast of what's going on, every single section of every single square feet in town, that's what I,
Well,
that's what
think they were
my
talking
takeaway
about the
was.
electric bill.
But I agree with you.
I know
No,
Bill's.
that doesn't
But even
work.
on
I
the
think
electric
Bill's
bill,
I think
they
Bill's
were
idea
upset
was the
about putting
electric
that on
bill
there.
and
Well, yeah,
like
they
that.
can't, they have to schedule the electric bill
Exactly.
months in advance,
I
okay,
agree with this
go ahead.
Let me throw another wrinkle into the whole piece of fabric. The state just passed another law, which maybe everybody is not aware of, that every town is subject to.
Is that the state calling you?
Every city and town in Massachusetts is now subject to being required to allow accessory dwelling units in every
Yep.
zoning district.
That's right, that's
I'm
right.
not sure how that's gonna apply to Danvers, whether we can have regulations to limit it or to have certain requirements for it, but basically, if you have a house in Danvers, you probably can be allowed to build a second house or an apartment on it.
900 feet, 900 square feet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, it's not like an in-law, you can
62.
rent.
That's, it sounds like it's gonna be rented to anybody.
Right.
I thought it wasn't, but we need to look into that too. I haven't been able to find much information on it yet.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be a mess.
On 62,
Yeah,
in between
yeah.
Forest Street and Bayberry Road, somebody's put a trailer in there. I'm not sure whose property it is, somebody was just telling me about it. And there's a trailer in there. And they actually have an awning out, and they have a back house, and
What's the rent?
But I mean, why is that going on?
Well,
Why?
yeah, it could be his own personal
We're
thing.
paying stuff.
Chime in before he starts.
This was a great segue. So, we have these zoning laws, there's gotta be ways we can affect change of these zoning laws over time. I know that some communities have acreage requirements for a house.
Yeah.
Why can't we push larger acreage for any new building? Any new building you're gonna do in town. That solves the cul-de-sac conversation a couple weeks ago, where they're splitting these units up in postage stamp lots. Middleton's got acre and a half zoning. So you have to have a lot of space to build houses. So if you have a property that's half an acre and split in two, there should be acreage requirements in Danvers. You wanna stop the density, but you wanna control the density, make them larger for anything new.
Well, see, the problem is they got these overlay districts.
Yep,
So we
I
have,
get it.
and so we have a basic, like, residence one is, 7,000.
10,000.
Oh, it's up to 10,000, so here, 20, no. 10,000 for residence one.
Quarter acre.
And then it's 20,000 in residence
Two.
two, and 30,000.
30,000 in residence 3.
So those are the the basic, one unit per, now with this new law coming in, actually, as a town meeting member, I don't know, did any other town meeting member get an email from some guy named Harvey, Butler? And so, yeah, he's some consultant, he says, do you need help implementing this, bylaw in Danvers? You know, to meet the state requirements, I never got back to him, but, it's like, yeah, that's all we need, more mandates from on high. But I don't know how that's gonna work, I really don't know what the details are, but the devil is always in the details, continuing.
My comment is more about future, right? So, we're all here because we're like, oh crap, all this stuff's been happening, our notification, shame on us to some degree.
Yeah.
But now here we are.
Right.
So how do we prevent, so let's be forward thinking, we do what we can now to stop the stuff we can stop. How do we be forward thinking 5, 10, 20 years down the road? Are there things we can do to control the population density in this town? Because I know in Salem it's 5,000 something per square feet, here it's like 20, it's less than half that. It's not gonna be for long at the rate this is going.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're gonna do. There's an overlay district that they wanna overlay in Tapleyville right now, and it's 14 units per acre with a special permit and 4 by right. So, we're gonna write a letter and demand some changes to lower the density and increase the parking, cause it's a double-edged. What's that?
It's one piece of property.
No,
Yes, yes.
that's the overlay.
No, the overlay is already there.
Yeah, I
They're
know,
adding-
we
they're
wanna
trying to-
change the overlay.
Jim, they're
Yeah.
trying to add 141 Pine Street to the overlay district.
Yeah.
The overlay stays.
Well,
They're
I
trying to
understand
add that
but
one piece of
What I'm
property.
saying, the overlay's on the table, if you wanted to take that overlay and put it over the Pine Street and Tapley area, then we're having a zoning,
Oh, maybe we
right,
should have the
and
right to-
we can say, hey,
But it's one
this
piece of
is-
property that they're talking.
no, I'm not, I'm talking about the whole zoning area. That whole overlay, if it says 14, it should go,
That's what Danielle is and
Yeah, I
the old
understand.
Yarmark.
Yep.
You wanna change all that?
I think I should.
I mean, is it already done though?
Well,
That's what they're
yeah,
looking
and,
at.
You know, it's like any other zoning
No, but over
bylaw, you
there,
couldn't do
at
this
Danielle's,
before, now you
it's
can,
over
you
there.
can't do that, now you can.
See,
So,
they did a good job at Daniela's though, from what I
Yeah.
hear, like the neighbors seem to be okay with like what's going on over there. I mean, it was,
We did a good job.
it was
rezoning
falling
it.
apart. I
Okay.
mean, the building was falling apart. It looks nice.
okay, so maybe you need to, your Pine Street group needs to fine tune what
Yeah, that's
you
what
know,
I'm thinking.
whether it's one thing or two things, cause everyone has a different way. You know, I mean, I was, in my mind, I'm thinking the whole overlay, but yeah, maybe it should just be, if you're gonna overlay this, then change the overlay for Pine Street.
I don't wanna stop that man from having a business in there and
Right.
making it nice, cause it's, I mean, it looks pretty. I know the former owners, the Prentices made it look really nice, cause that was another building that was falling apart. I don't know if everybody remembers that. But it's just, I just feel, I got the feeling that I could see a whole bunch of buildings going there, like, for people to live. It's not about having a business there, it's about, cause I never see any traffic coming out of there, I don't know about anybody else, but there's never any traffic, like, it's not a high traffic area, that specific.
I disagree.
You
I
think
live
so?
right there. Traffic at 2 AM, 4 AM, that whole area is all night long. So I'm happy to.
You mean at Tapley?
Yeah.
Where the,
Yeah, in fact, I was at the
construction building is?
transportation board this week, or this last week,
Oh, okay, I didn't
to
know this.
highlight
Good to
how
know.
ridiculous it is. The noise at 2 AM, 4 AM, they have,
food company across
yeah, they
Oh,
have.
the food, you're talking about the food company, I'm talking about the landscaping.
Same type
Oh,
of thing,
okay.
5 AM, 6 AM.
Really?
So,
I didn't know
the
that.
thing is though, with these changes, what's to stop them from saying, you know, it's more profitable to rip all this down, and if by right, I can put 30 people in that area, that whole area
That's
could
what I'm
turn
worried
into,
about, yeah.
you know,
It's one of those
2,000 more units, so, just think about that, like, it's the little red building
Reasonable
on
discussion.
Boulevard
We gotta have
and
reasonable
Pine,
discussion.
the high rise next to it, everything between Daniela's and Pine Street.
Oh, is that what they're
And
talking
it
about,
keeps,
all of
it
that?
goes between
Oh.
Burrow Street and Pine Street, so all of that, you could pull that down and put a whole neighborhood in there by right.
Didn't Daniela's just buy the building next to it? I heard they bought the building next to it and were thinking about either knocking it down for parking for the restaurant or putting a pastry shop there.
Oh, I hope so.
Looking at it to the left.
But it's the same type of
Yeah.
thing, though. If it's more profitable,
Yeah.
at some point, a developer could come in with a sweetheart offer and say, hey, sell me all this, and if they take it, we're tons and tons of units that will only make the areas of Holton, Hobart, Pine, Collins, Sylvan, it will all be just like that.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna be great.
So, okay, so this is good news, like, this is why we're here, we need to know all this information, cause I did not know all that was going on, so I'm glad that, cause when I drive down the street, I actually skirt around it, because there's so much traffic right there, and if they do what you're saying, you're never gonna get in and out of there, I mean, it's insane, it's already crazy,
Yeah, so whatever you guys decide to craft, just make sure that everybody's got their point in it, and you gotta be specific, and you gotta start early, because, I don't know, these things are gonna happen right after the holiday, you know, it's Christmas. This is New
Yeah,
Year's.
we'll get together.
Yeah, it's
So-
enough time to do it all.
When you go to a select board meeting, the first thing is if they ask if there's anything not on the agenda, no business, they'll let you speak. They'll give you 3 to 5 minutes. They don't want 10 people saying the same thing. They want different things mentioned.
Right.
And again, like I said before, if enough people are gonna show up, warn them so they can have it
One
a
person
location that will accommodate.
represents the group, so.
I think we
Okay.
should
And all
start
your
a
town meeting
spokesperson.
members, telephone numbers and emails are on the list. Call us. Do it respectfully. We're volunteers too.
Yeah.
You know, don't call, I had one guy call, start swearing at me. I said, sir, I'm a volunteer. You swear once more, I'm hanging up
You
the
mean you're
phone.
not getting the paycheck?
But they're all 144 of us are listed there, and, you know, we're all neighbors. We wanna do the right thing. We're trying.
We emailed all you guys, so, is that how you found out, or did you, how did you guys find out
Don't wait for the
to come to this meeting?
Yeah, that
From
and
emails?
Facebook, Jim's
Okay.
Facebook.
Yeah, all right, great, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here, you know.
Well,
We're
we
just very
appreciate you being
passionate about-
invited. Yeah, and I meant no, I get
All right,
passionate.
I know, me too. I
I'm
just,
sorry.
you know, we just don't want these huge changes, because all of a sudden, we're gonna close our eyes and these monstrosities are gonna be everywhere, and I don't wanna be forced out of where I live. It's like the first house I ever purchased, I'm not moving, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
hear
I'm
you.
gonna fight Sylvania to the death, I don't care. I'm gonna find something and they're not gonna be able to put anything in there, I'm praying, but I don't know, I don't want anything over there, I don't care if it's,
I have a question.
yes.
Was there a rumor that it was supposed to be not deeded, but, open space?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's,
That
is
disappeared.
that something that you can't find the records on for
We're-
the town?
I need help with that for sure, because there's a lot to dig into. I went to the library archives,
Registry of Deeds.
okay, yeah, the registry of
So you
deeds.
need to know.
Yeah, but who do we, which property is it? Is it the Sylvania property that possibly said that?
Yeah.
Who owned it after? I don't know.
Would it be
Well, maybe
similar
the
to Sylvan?
town assessor might be able to follow that chain with the tax records, I don't know.
There's
And
also
you
a
need to know
5
that-
and 10-year open space planning document that's put together. I don't know, it might
What does
show up
that
in
mean?
there,
Who does that?
the town.
It's done by the Department of Recreation, and it's actually up right now. It's 7 years, and they just completed their survey. So it's gonna be out in the next 2 or 3 months, probably for this.
But if you're looking for
special
things
town
that may have
meeting.
been lost, go back,
Yeah,
in that report, go back. If it's every 7 years, go back 21 years and see if
Yeah.
there's something there.
okay,
And you can
But,
ask,
and if it's not on the deed, if it didn't restrict the deed,
yeah.
you're not gonna.
but if
yeah.
but if it is on the open space report, then you can make a political argument.
Okay.
Right.
This was the intent of the town and blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah.
Yeah, if we could find it on the minutes of the meeting.
Well, I think someone tried to find the minutes about it and they disappeared, so I don't know.
Okay.
well, you know,
She said she tried to find them and they're gone, like there's no
Yeah,
minutes about it.
they were
lost. So they're like lost.
We're missing, yeah.
Everything else is around but that. So, but the other question I had about it is, that property as a whole was supposed to maintain a certain amount of green space because there's so much asphalt on that whole Sylvania property.
Right.
So I need to find out how to get that information, so like, is that a,
Planning board, you go right
the
to the
planning
planning
board?
department.
okay.
They'll have restrictions on what
Okay.
that site plan restricted.
Because I believe that's why nothing has ever been built there where the two houses used to be at 180, 182 Pine. It's been left as green space because Sylvania expanded or whatever, I need to find those details as well, but, that's,
Those are the two big things.
Yeah,
We
those are-
talked about that a
Contamination and
lot,
the green,
like,
and the
that was
green
talked
space.
about, at all the meetings that we ever ever went to with Sylvania, when it was owned by the Brookwood Properties or whatever it was called, they literally, they kept mentioning, we're having green space, we have green space, all the green space, and they literally would get up, we could probably watch the old videos if they have them somewhere, they were up pointing to all the green space where there'd be buffers so that the residents living on Pine Street and the residents living behind, the Sylvania wouldn't hear all the noise from the trucks coming in and out. That was the point. But when they move in, if they build there and the people move in there, they're gonna have tons of noise, cause
Well,
there's trucks going in and out every day.
Well, hopefully that's on the planning board's list of, whatever you call them, special considerations, I forget the term.
Site plan, it's all part of
Site plan,
site
it's all
plan.
part of the
Yeah.
site plan, should be listed.
Just
as-
something else real quick. Who's to say, I know it's industrial zone, but are they able to make that whole thing apartments or condos if they really want to?
Not without a rezoning of it.
Right.
They'd have to rezone.
Okay, so, I mean,
So only 182 and 180 are residential.
Yeah,
Right.
That's it.
and with those two lots, and that's, I think,
Too
it was
small.
just that. With just the two residential lots, they can only do 5
Yeah,
units.
Five
Yeah.
units.
It's all,
That's why they
Yeah.
it's all
on the
commercial.
Strip,
yeah,
Well,
right,
so they can get
It's
it up
all
to the
in-
7,
industrial
yeah,
one.
7 and
Yeah.
variances.
Right.
But the thing is, with the plan that I saw, it still shows they wanna put all 8 units on those 2 lots.
right, yo, it's.
And have them the
it's
same
insane.
size, that,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
2,400 square feet.
Right.
Right.
So if anybody can help me with any of those issues, please take down my phone number or whatever before we leave here, cause it's a big job and I can't do it all by myself, and I don't even know what I'm doing, so it would be very helpful if anyone knows someone that knows about it, just, I'll give you my email and just please help me somehow, We have a bunch of neighbors that have been doing a lot of work, Karen and Joanne and Andrea and everybody else.
You
Shannon
made a
and
good
Marge.
point, the registry of deeds.
Yeah.
The registry of deeds.
So do you go to Salem for that, or?
No, you
Go
can do it
online.
online.
You can do it
Oh, you
online.
do it right online, okay.
Yeah. You can
We'll
search
find
by
it.
name of the owners or by the address.
Okay,
It can be a little tricky, but,
yeah,
Yeah.
there are ways you can call in and get assistance also.
okay,
The problem is there's like 5 addresses over there, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because there's not just one address.
was it anything before Sylvania?
Not that I've never
It's-
seen
it
anything.
started
But you
as
know who would
Sylvania,
know
right?
is Linda,
Yeah.
the other
Oh, right.
Linda. She knows everything, we need to sit with
She
her.
grew up right in
She's
that
lived there
house.
since she was 3 years old.
That family's been there and
When the road was dirt,
it's been there for
she lived there.
63 years, she said.
I'm not kidding. The road was dirt, I'm not kidding.
Alright,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Alright, so, I
Thank
just
you
wanna
so
make
much.
sure that everyone,
Thank you. Bill,
You
nice
know,
to meet
nice
you,
to
I
meet you.
appreciate it.
we all
Thank you
need
so
to,
much.
take our own efforts and try to learn the process. If you have time, go to the website, the Danvers Town Hall website, look at it, kind of bumble your way through and just look at all the stuff, they got quick
Run
quick
for
things.
town meeting. We don't have enough people.
Yeah.
Run
I
for town,
told a lot
10
of people,
signatures. All you gotta get
run
is
for
10
town
signatures.
meeting.
Yeah.
Kyle did it. He's one of our newest town meeting members over there, and one of our youngest.
All right.
I did it.
Yeah, that's right. Joanne
And
did
you
it.
regret that I did, Bill.
No, I love it. Hey, reasonable discussion, I love it.
I know, no,
Happy to have
I
you.
did, this is why I ran, and, a lot of people, I know I said it to Linda, Linda's like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I run, it's because, I kinda got fed up, I'm like, I don't like what's happening, and you know
Yeah.
what? I've never, ever done anything like this before in my life, ever.
Some people will appreciate, Tracy Flagg was an
And I-
old timer,
and I
and
said
I
I
had
ran,
traffic
and
on
I
Collins
ran.
Street. I lived on Collins Street,
Yeah.
with beer trucks. He says, run for town meeting. I said, what the hell is a town meeting
Yeah,
member?
and I ran.
I never even knew about
I'm
one
glad our
until I met
selectman,
you.
Mr. Bean, is here. How are you, sir?
Just learning. Listen, I do wanna say something, real quick. Everybody, you need to move as a group, and, what Mr. Powers said, what he suggested was to chip away at the block. So you gotta stay focused, and if you just take small bites, you'll get there.
And
Can't move the whole thing.
do it respectfully, whatever you do.
Yeah, right.
Don't yell at people, just respectfully say, no, I
You
disagree
can only
with
yell
you."
at Bill Bates, cause he
Yeah,
yells
you
at
yell
us.
at me, I deserve it.
I
do.
do know though, showing up at the end of the day, some of the meetings we're at, I feel like they were like, okay, we're way ahead of this, and you guys are just showing up to the party. Like,
It's
we were,
fr-
we were
yeah.
bringing
Well,
extra
then,
drinks and they were
that's
like,
another
we've been
problem.
drinking
Maybe
water. Know why you're here. So we really do, to your point, Mike, we need to have our ducks in a row when we go in because, and we don't need the same people saying the same stuff. We need a couple people to
Right.
speak. There was, what's her name with the brunette with the short
That's
hair?
Pat.
Pat,
That's
she's
how
amazing.
moderator.
I feel like we should have her speak for us because she's awesome. But we do need to come together and if anybody has any like ideas, please email Linda, because we're all in an email chain. I know it gets cumbersome, but if you really wanna help, sorry, that's my son Michael, it's the only time my phone rings. So if we really need to get together and stay as a group, like you were saying, Mike, because they're not gonna listen if we're one off everywhere.
Right.
So you just gotta keep on persistent.
So the big thing is really, I mean, in reality, you know, everybody here is somebody that's affected by what's going on. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't just happen yesterday. There weren't these massive changes. It's like the boiling a frog. There was that slow boil, with subtle changes here and there. And, you know, if it was a matter of, we just strictly went by policy and not practice, there would be no appeals board anywhere, because it would just go by the policy and that's it. But because
We don't
we're
wanna do
fluid
that.
and we're constantly trying to improve things, that's why they have appeals board, and everybody's trying to do it for the better of the community. And so you make those incremental steps down the road, and it wasn't in your neighborhood then, you know, it wasn't in your backyard when all these things were happening, and when it was taking those steps, now it is. You know, and so we can't just sit there and say, oh, cut the tail off and go back. We gotta make those changes to go back.
Yeah, and we can make those changes, small and incremental, and every year having a special town meeting in February, and then March, and then come April, the planning board will start planning what they're gonna do for next town special meeting. And we gotta get right on the ground floor, and we gotta say, too much density, too little parking, and just go in all these areas. That's it. I mean, I live on Hardy Ha Ha Street, which is right off of High Street, that's the 36 units per acre density, so that's the biggest one in town. So, and that's why, yeah, I mean, when those people start selling their properties on High Street, it's gonna be, yeah, talk about a city block. It's gonna look like the corner of Hobart
Yeah,
and,
I was 72 and 53.
Hobart and Maple, all the way down High Street.
Yeah,
All the way.
So are we gonna meet again? Like, what's our
Precinct two.
next step here?
I think our next step should be to, get that letter going and find out and make sure that you guys are, all got your wood behind. Do some email talking, if we have to get together, we can have a meeting, we can find a room somewhere and just have a meeting.
Maybe
just
reach
wanna
out
say
to
something
Mike
real quick.
Landers.
Joanne, do you remember, the January 13th meeting? What is that?
That's the zoning board meeting, again, I think it's the continuance
Of
for
Sylvania
the, well,
property.
it's the continuance for the,
The appeal to make eight
appeal
units.
to make
guys
a,
come.
yeah,
That's
so
what it is.
that's the only thing, that's why they had to go to zoning, was
Yeah.
that eighth unit.
Okay,
Right.
Well, eight and the industrial.
so that's an important meeting for everybody to go to here.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
January 13th,
That they don't have,
Monday night.
they don't have the votes
right,
on the board right now.
Right.
As this is why they did the continuance for the eighth unit
And the industrial.
in the industrial change.
yeah,
They don't have it.
yeah,
They
okay.
couldn't, you know, I think one of the things, they couldn't show the hardship, so.
They encouraged that builder too to meet with the neighbors, and I don't think we've
I haven't
heard
heard
anything
anything.
from him.
Yeah, I can
I live right
guarantee you,
across from
they're
it.
gonna back it off, the industrial patios and all those residential uses off the industrial lines, and they're just gonna build it, and then
They'll go for 5, because they can do 5 by right.
No, they can do 7.
They can do
No,
7.
no, only if they get that other property.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can't.
Only if they get that other property.
The 8
Oh,
was
really?
to take some of the tail, they called it,
See,
which was,
remember, Linda, I
where the-
told you, that's what Andy said, they could only do 5, but
Yeah.
if they get the tail, they can do 7,
Seven
but
and
they
a
were
half.
looking for
Oh,
the 8.
okay.
That's what-
Okay. See, those, that's what I'm talking, the devil's
yeah,
in
they
the
totally
details.
didn't, they didn't even mention 5 at all.
Yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about.
they never.
No,
did.
they didn't want them
But
because
he-
they,
He's like, you can only
They
do
didn't
five, I'm like,
mention
where'd you get that from?
Whoa,
application
whoa,
was.
no, I remember now. You know, the builder's lawyer, she said, no, whether that's, you do that or not, we can still build 7.5. That's, I know she said that.
That was answering a different question. That was answering a different question. With his 2 units, that without changing any zoning, I believe he, by right, can do 5 condos.
Yeah, cause,
And that's probably what he's gonna come back with.
I don't remember the names, the gentleman was all the way on the end on the left. He brought that up, and that's where I
That was
came in.
just our,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he
He's
said,
on
yes,
the
so
zoning
you got the
board.
2 residential lots, you can do
Yeah.
5, you're looking for the variance to add that piece
Yeah.
to get to your 7 units. He emphasized that, 7 units, I don't know where you're getting 7.5.
Oh, yes, yes, I remember.
Well, they have a
yeah,
little
I
extra
remember that.
space, I think, that's why they're saying 7.5.
Well, it's a
Because,
calculation.
oh, what's the big deal if you round up, cause he kept saying, there's no such thing as a half.
yeah, we don't round up.
Yeah.
Then go round down.
Rounding up.
Is
That's what
that
he said.
still online
Round
to
down.
watch that session live?
Yep.
It's still online to
Yep.
view?
Yeah, you can go to
Yeah, all right.
DCAT and
Yeah,
watch
I'd
it
like to
again.
rewatch that.
I just think that's our next step, just to figure out, if they are gonna put 5 units there, they definitely need enough parking. Like, and I know you don't want any units, but
Yeah, I'm
if
shooting
we're
for 0.
pushed over the edge,
Yeah,
that's,
did you hear what she said though? She said, where are they gonna push the snow? Oh, we're gonna push that through the guest spaces.
Right.
but then how are they gonna park, like,
Go
I
park
just
there
don't.
because they're gonna move the
Yeah.
snow on top of you.
I'm tired of running down the street to knock
Well,
on
and it's
people's
funny
doors.
She
how-
said there's
Because
a
my oil
cul-de-sac.
delivery is
They're
coming
getting
that
more
way.
green space, and when
It's
I'm gonna be
ridiculous.
honest, usually when you have common space in areas like that, like I said, behind my house, they've never, ever used it. I've never heard a dog, I've never heard a ball, I've never heard a kid,
Right.
I've never heard anything back there, not even cooking out. And they have grills out there, I've never heard of anything, you can hear a lot from my yard.
That's a
Nothing
nice, I
goes
mean,
on
that's a
there.
nice, you're not set back, it is, I know we're talking, what is that?
Party house.
Where is that?
Yep.
That's, I know what you're
Yeah, right
talking about,
behind
was
my
it by
house.
90, is it 90 Pines, or what is the number there?
So where,
Is that okay?
is they 190 or is it
Oh,
190?
190, okay, yeah, I
They're
walk
not
by there all the
192.
time, and it's set back, it's nice.
Make sure you erase it after. you
Oh,
go.
I definitely don't put it on the
Oh, no, no.
Does everybody have my email here? I'm not sure I know everybody. Alright, I'll just write it.
Thanks for doing that, because I can't remember my name.
Pine Neighbors.
They should be,
You got 1 here out of 18.
yeah,
Call all of them.
yeah,
Because they're the ones that are gonna vote on it.
yeah,
They're good people.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they
They don't know.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Well, one other thing, when we were, remember the end of that last meeting? Your house is right at the lip in Linda's. And that.
Blind spot.
I don't know who, yeah, there's a blind spot there, and one of the patrons that were, happened to be in the meeting said that her daughter backed out of that driveway, your driveway.
Yeah, almost got T-boned
And I'm sure that almost happens to you a lot, cause
all
people
the time,
flying over that hill.
all the time.
But that's where they wanna put
Is
the
what- is this what it's
driveway
called?
for this particular unit.
I
This
know,
is
but
just-
Just use it as it.
And we had that big discussion about,
Oh.
you know,
Yeah, I
dead-end
just made this up
streets with,
because
you know, no
my,
cul-de-sac.
it would have gotten
This
lost
is a
in my
dead-end
regular
street,
email, you know?
and there's no
That's good.
cul-de-sac. I mean, you driveway for 8 units, it's like.
Just take a picture or whatever.
Is there
That's-
any chance of making them egress out to Sylvan Street?
That's
I
a
mean,
good
you can
question.
ask, I don't know if they can, I don't know if they, I'd have to look at the,
Someone did ask that, I think,
I don't know if
during the
they
meeting.
own that
Do you
piece.
remember what they said? I don't think they answered it, they skipped right over that. You might even have asked that in the meeting, someone did.
I mean,
They don't wanna go
some-
out.
I think that was my
Adams,
other
I
neighbor.
was saying, can't they go
She's
out
not
there?
here.
Oh, and then the people from Adams were like, what?
Oh, and the Adams Street.
They don't need it over there.
No, they don't, and I think there was some neighbors there, they're like, no.
Hey, Jim,
I think
Jim.
they were like cringing.
Yeah, they're, 'cause I think
He's
there
not
is a
even
piece
listening.
that's kind of
Jim,
going over to Adams Street, the back of it is Adams Street.
I think that's
I think
what,
the owner was
Okay.
shocked that we were all there.
If anybody wants to get a hold of Linda or the neighbors, that's the email address, pineneighbors@gmail.com. Okay, and that, how many people are on there? You and,
Well, that's just my email,
Oh,
but
that's it.
we formed a big group, so we
Oh, okay.
add everybody that emails us, so, I think what we'll probably do is just, in the beginning, it was a lot of chatter and meet and greet kind of thing, so maybe we should just start a new one with specific, like, you know, this is what we need to do,
I won't do any introductions, I'll just add the people and, you know, just to keep it more simple, there's about 100, you know, conversations going on the one that we have right now, but
Yeah.
we'll just keep it like the important stuff.
And then let's get together, we'll start drafting this letter, speak to this guy.
A warrant, yeah. We can
The lawyer.
reach out to Mike Landers and just say,
Yes,
we
definitely.
need some help with this.
Yeah, yes.
And maybe that he already has something similar
Yeah.
that's already drafted
Yeah.
up, but I think we can get 100 signatures pretty easy.
Oh, right.
Like, I think that's gonna be the simple piece of it.
Absolutely.
Because-
We're gonna do a warrant for, you don't have to.
Okay, he hasn't spoken, we'll let.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm not from Danvers, but I grew up in Danvers. I'm kind of Vitale, I ran for state rep. And just a couple of things, you know, that we were just talking. And I was just wondering if you guys have called your state legislators at all for any of this? Because we could at least get them to sign the petitions and maybe get on board with some of this stuff.
Good idea.
Great idea. And then we could also, you would also mention paying $10,000 in taxes. And I think that number should be a lot higher. I think you're talking about $10,000 in property taxes.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
But everyone's also paying state taxes
Yeah.
at the same time,
Yeah.
and that's where our grant money comes from.
I
So,
pay a lot of those too.
yeah, so
So isn't everyone in this room?
right, yeah, so you guys are paying into the state system, and then the state is sending you back grant money.
Mhm.
And the legislatures are the ones who are responsible for getting that grant money. So if you start hammering them and saying, hey, you know, you guys are burdening us with all of these regulations that you're talking about, send us some of this grant money, let's crank that up, because you're doing it to us. So I think that's a good tact to take, and to kind of get the state on your side. And it doesn't matter, right, that, I mean, the political party is not the issue.
Yep.
It's the neighborhoods and what's happening. Let's see here. So I think I covered that. You had mentioned getting stuff in writing from people.
Yes.
Right? The way I handle this, and this is life-changing advice that I got, or I just dawned on me, I can't remember where I came from. But if you're ever in that situation, and someone's like, yeah, I'll do that for you, oh, I'll do that for you. You know, go back home, sit down at your email desk and say, get his email address or whatever, and say, oh, dear Mr. Legislator, it was so nice talking to you today. Thank you so much for your offer to blah, 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 blah. I look forward to seeing it. Now it's in writing, right? Make him come back and say, hey, that's not what I said. You can mischaracterize it if you want. Make him do the work now, right? And,
They mischaracterize us all the time.
yeah, that's exactly. It dawned on me one day. I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just do this? You know, and I think that was it. Yep.
Thank you.
I just the whole beginning of the, I'm sorry, I was at another meeting at the senior center prior to this, but, just one thing, with town meeting, as you know, as a town meeting member, you go there, most of the people that show up there don't really know what they're voting on, and they vote with the finance committee recommendations. So if you're gonna do amendments, citizens petitions, anything to that effect, the more information you get out, the sooner, so people start discussing it, and they know going into the meeting, not to just vote what it says on the paper, is extremely helpful. And that's just my opinion, because otherwise, whatever recommendation they make is how people are gonna vote. And you'll have this group stand up, but no one's gonna vote with you. It's,
Yeah, Mike, you are right, I mean, because I think you had a warrant at,
yeah, that's why I was just asking.
yes, you had one at the last meeting, didn't you?
It actually just, it made it to the next step, so.
Yeah, so here's an example of moving along, I know you had one.
And who helped
Jim, Jim, there's people here trying to talk about getting a petition to go to town meeting for February. You don't have time. You've gotta get the language written, get it on a petition, then get those petitions signed, and get it into the selectmen for 2 weeks.
January 7th.
You don't have time. What you need to do is go to FinCom and argue your case, get them to amend the warrant article and reduce the density, if that's what you're looking to do. If they go in with a warrant article, that came from the planning board, says we're gonna do blah, and you come in with another one at the last minute that says, we want you to do blah, blah instead, it's gonna get confusing. Go to FinCom, argue your case there, and convince them that what you want is what's better for the town. You just
Okay.
don't have time to try to put a petition together
Well, I don't
this
think
way.
we were putting a petition together as much as.
Well, someone's talking about getting 100%,
And one,
100
I-
signatures to get on the warrant.
Yeah, one, we need to get a letter together just to let the planning board know what we wanna do.
Yeah.
And then,
Bullets.
yeah, and then the second one would be whether we do that, petition, a warrant article. And we could do it for the May.
Yeah.
But not, I don't think we can make it for the, February.
You could go to FinCom in time and argue your case.
You'd at least have an audience with
Yes,
FinCom.
yeah.
And we could just say, and this is gonna be coming for the May one.
Yeah.
Okay,
When
good.
is
What's
the FinCom
FinCon?
meeting for?
Haven't announced.
Finance
it.
FinCom
committee.
is the finance committee.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Before, a week before.
They
2 weeks
they
before the
review
town
all the warrant
Got it.
That's
articles
when they'll
and,
get,
I just didn't know that.
that's when they'll get.
yeah.
I didn't
the
know
lingo.
language. I didn't know lingo.
Zoning
Yeah.
changes.
Two weeks before the. Okay, that's good, that's good.
FinCom, got it.
Okay, I just wanna appreciate everyone who came, and I really, and we can't just, we have to keep moving forward. We have to stay on top of this. It's like riding a boat. No, we can't, we gotta last longer than 8 seconds.
And I wanna thank you for helping us
Yes.
to, teach us the process. I work the polls, and I gotta tell you, the things that I see and hear at the polls, checking in and checking out. People do not know history, they don't know government, they don't even know how to vote. People ask the stupid, would you like a Democrat, Republican, or a Libertarian ballot?
What's that mean?
Oh, Libertarian, well, that's either or, right?
Oh my god.
This is what kind of things that we get.
Yeah,
So I was.
I had a woman who called and she said, I'd like the Libertarian ballot, and I said, okay, here it is. She went to the booth, she came back, she said, where are the names? And I said, there aren't any names running, you have to write it in. She says, I'll have to make a phone call. I'm telling you.
To who?
I get it but I appreciate the thing, because for the most part, if you're not involved in our town government, and young people are busy with raising their families, they don't have time, they don't get involved, and then something like this comes up, so I really appreciate you helping us. Thank you.
okay, and I
Yeah,
just
really,
appreciate
we
Linda, she
appreciate it,
came,
Jim, so
and
much.
I don't know how you found, and you talked to us, and that's what, we're all Danvers residents, we have to work together
We
to
appreciate it. We don't
solve
feel
these
as alone.
issues that affect everyone. Okay, this is a quality of life issue for the whole town.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I think we need to tell your friends, tell your other
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people just don't know, like you were
Right.
saying earlier, you don't know until it's like sprouting up in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Cause most people are not following along, so I think we need to get people to think ahead and,
Well, let's see, I'm getting up there.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Phil, thanks for all your input. Okay, I think so we'll work with you guys, and if you wanna have another meeting, just let us know, and we'll, wherever, we can get this room again, or we want to do whatever, but we gotta keep moving
We wanna
forward.
get like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.